Hey everybody, today I'm in Noblesville, Indiana, and I'm actually at MORSE Park and MORSE Beach with MORSE Reservoir right behind me, as you can see. It's a beautiful spot and incredible. And in this video here, we're going to talk a little bit about Noblesville and just the versatility of this suburb and all of the things that it really truly has to do. It does things very small and also does things very big. And amazingly, this suburb, it really flies under the radar when you compare it to some of the other suburbs around Indianapolis, especially the ones up on the north side. So we're gonna get into some of the details here, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Noblesville, Indiana, or Indianapolis, or any of the Indy Metro, then be sure you hit the subscribe button, tap the little bell so you're notified every single time we do a new video, each and every week. Now we get reach outs from people all over the Indy Metro and all over the country with questions about suburbs like Noblesville, Indiana, but also questions about Indianapolis. And people are thinking about making their move to Indianapolis or the surrounding metro or within. So if you're even thinking about doing the same, then make sure that you reach out any way you know how, and we'd be happy to help you out and have your back when you're making your move. So today we're talking about Noblesville, Indiana, and just the fact that this suburb is so incredibly versatile and it really flies under the radar. I'm amazed all the time at how that happens. Now nearby suburbs, Carmel, Indiana, and Fishers, Indiana, they're phenomenal. They're great places. Also Westfield, Zionsville, a lot of the northern suburbs, they have great reputations. Carmel and Fishers especially, across the Indy Metro and across the country, they're very well known. But Noblesville is right next door. It's not small either. There's more than 60,000 people here, but still somehow it flies under the radar, amazingly. And that's too bad because this place here is fantastic. It runs the gamut, really, of things to do. Very small to very, very big. And then on top of that, they have great schools. They're top 20 in the state of Indiana. And it's not a small school system here in Noblesville either. The high school has about 3,000 kids. So on niche.com, you're talking about an A- rating, and to be top 20 or so in the entire state of Indiana, that's pretty incredible, competing with a lot of other really small schools out there. So a great place to be. So we're gonna run through just some of those places that make it really versatile and give it a pretty unique feel. So of course the first one is this place right here, MORSE Reservoir. I mean, MORSE Reservoir is huge. Now, nearby, a little bit to the southeast, you have Geist Reservoir, which is, of course, much bigger, and it helps to supply some water to Indianapolis. And you've got McCordsville, Fishers, and Indianapolis that surround all of Geist. Up here with MORSE, it's for the most part Noblesville. If you go a little further north, way up the reservoir, you get into a really small suburb named Cicero, which is another really cool place. But mostly Noblesville here. And MORSE, while big, is still, when you compare it to Geist, a little understated. Everything is a little more calm. Plus, there's a lot to do around MORSE Reservoir. Where I'm at right now in MORSE Park and MORSE Beach, they actually have a beach. You can come and bring your kids. It's not a fancy beach, anything like that, but they have sand and a place where you can get into the water. Plus, there are also some boat docks where you could drop a kayak in or a canoe, a really small boat. You can't put your pontoon or your ski boats in there. You have to go up to MORSE Marina for that, but you can put smaller paddle boats in there, or you can paddle board yourself, whatever you want to do. Now, I know that people will swim from there occasionally, even though they have some no swimming signs located right along that, and that's because there are sometimes boats that come in and out of some of the private docks that line some of MORSE Reservoir just from the houses. But people do swim. I've been guilty of that in the past. I used to do triathlons and would run, bike, and swim a lot, and out in Noblesville is where pretty much would do all of the biking, the cycling, because you could get outside of the city really easily and into the country, out where it was just bean fields, cornfields, and a lot of open road, and it was just a whole lot safer. But doing our open water swims, if we weren't inside at a YMCA or something, we'd come here because we could just do as big an open water swim as we possibly wanted. Now, you needed to have a buoy attached to you or a kayaker going alongside you for safety, just so you didn't have anybody on a boat that would come along and pose any danger, but people do that here. But MORSE Reservoir is also big enough to where you can ski, you can tube, you can do all of the water sports that might interest you as well. So a really versatile place and pretty unique as far as the suburbs go. with MORSE Reservoir. Another cool place that is pretty far north in Noblesville, you're getting out there a little bit, is KOTEEWI Park, where it's also really versatile. You can camp up there. They have an archery range. I mean, there's no other suburb around Indianapolis that I know of that has an archery range, especially as fancy as the one at KOTEEWI. They've got a tubing hill, and even in the winters here, we don't really get all that much snow anymore. It seems like a long time ago we used to get a whole lot more snow, 30 and 40 years ago or so. But we don't get that much, but they can produce their own snow there, and it's not a dramatic hill, but it's pretty cool though. You can certainly take younger kids. They've got a line that you can tow up to the top, and then you can take your tube down, and pretty fun. But they have that artificial snow most of the year, or at least most of the winter, so you're able to do that. They have horseback riding. You can actually rent a horse to go horseback riding. Over 8 miles of trails. KOTEEWI Park is actually the biggest park in Hamilton County. So Hamilton County is Fishers, Carmel, Westfield, some of the bigger suburbs on the north side of Indianapolis. So it's a huge park, more than 700 acres or so. They've got 8 miles of trails where you can take the horses, you can mountain bike, you can run, you can walk. Just a super cool outdoorsy type of park. You just don't find that in too many of the other suburbs around Indianapolis. Now, if things like that and just being out in nature aren't really your thing, Noblesville, it has the opposite of that too. They have the old downtown square where kind of preserving the feel of what Noblesville was really like a long time ago. Noblesville has been here since the 1800s, and they still have brick-lined streets, the old courthouse, and the square surrounding it with all kinds of really unique shops and restaurants. Pretty cool place to go. Easy to find a parking spot for the most part in most days, and just a lot of really neat places to actually be. But in addition to that, things to do in there, let's say for the kids too and the family, they have not too far from the square, they have the pavilion. It's called Federal Hill Commons, and it's the first merchant pavilion, which is actually just a theater. So they have concerts there throughout the entire summer, multiple days, and you're not gonna get any huge acts in there, but you'll get all kinds of cover bands and a lot of really well-known, locally at least, cover bands that'll come through there. Just a really cool place to be. The kids love it. You can run around on the grass. They have a playground, they have decent bathrooms, and you're not worried about just a porta pot out in one of those places. So anyway, it's a nice place right in the heart of Noblesville. So a pretty cool place to go. So Noblesville, again, it kind of flies under the radar. It has these small, really unique places to Noblesville and give it its own character. It's really different than what you're gonna find in Westfield or Carmel or Fishers. It just has a very, very different vibe to it, that's for sure. So for that reason, I think it does fly under the radar. But Noblesville is also really well known across the country for music. So if a big act is coming to Indianapolis, there's really only a few places that they can go. And big acts do come through Indianapolis, thank goodness, because myself, I'm a huge music fan. I do like to go to shows, concerts, and we get an opportunity to do that. Inside of Indianapolis, in the city, there are all kinds of different venues. You've got the Vogue, you've got places down in Fountain Square, plenty of small venues to actually see places at Butler University, Clues, and you've got the Murat Theater down off of Mass Ave. So lots and lots of places. Plus, you've got Bankers Life Fieldhouse, so it'll have huge acts in there. I've seen U2 in there, seen Foo Fighters in there, so you might not be a U2 or Foo Fighters fan, that doesn't matter, but you can at least know that, hey, those are some pretty big bands. So they've played Bankers Life, Bruce Springsteen, and then you get over to Lucas Oil Stadium. Now Lucas Oil, that's big. We're talking more than 60,000 people at a concert, so that's reserved for some unique style shows, more kind of like a show that's kind of like a mini festival. Kenny Chesney, I think he runs his concerts pretty much that way, where he's the headliner, but it's sort of all day long. It's show after show after show, kind of like a one-day festival. So Lucas Oil does it, some pretty big shows. But outside of that, where are you gonna go? You actually come to Noblesville. And there's a huge music center out on the east side of Noblesville. Currently, it's named RUOFF Music Center. Now, RUOFF is a home mortgage company, and they just happen to be the sponsor. But if you ask anybody from Indianapolis or the Noblesville area who's at least my age, in their upper 40s. What's the name of it? We all call it Deer Creek, because long ago, that's all it was. It was Deer Creek Music Center. And then it changed to Verizon Music Center, and then it went to Klipsch Music Center, and now it's RUOFF. So it changes, seems like fairly often anymore, but we all call it Deer Creek around here. But it's huge, and we can actually squeeze 25, 26,000. I think there might have been shows where they can squeeze closer to 30,000 in there. I might be wrong about that, but it's a lot of people. And they have two sections, huge lawn section, and then the pavilion where you actually have seats, and they've got a little standing section down at the front as well. And this is where big names come. So again, if you're not fans of these, who cares? But bands like Coldplay will go in there, or The Killers, which happens to be one of my favorite bands, and just saw them there not all that long ago. Huge bands like that will play there, and they have huge country acts. So essentially, if they're not playing inside at Bankers Life Fieldhouse where the Pacers play, then they're probably playing up at Deer Creek or RUOFF Music Center. Really cool place, and it's right here in little Noblesville. We're talking 50 to 60,000 people or so. So it's amazing that this city actually isn't as known as what it probably could be, and I think that the vibe of Noblesville is okay with that, because a lot of people will want to move into the northern suburbs of Indianapolis, and they think Carmel, Fishers, maybe Westfield, maybe Zionsville, but it seems like Noblesville is sort of there in the background. And I always like to try to bring it to the forefront a little bit based on personality. Now, it is a little bit far to the northeast, so that might not be a fit for you, depending on where you work and where you just need to go on a daily basis. But based on all of the unique things that it has to offer, especially a lot of the outdoor things, I think it's a really cool place. And it's one of my favorite places just because of the versatility. And I think for the future, it's probably gonna be all right that it does fly under the radar. It is growing, it's certainly growing, but not at the pace of a suburb like Westfield or Fishers, even though those have slowed down some. But Noblesville is still stretching out towards the northeast, and you can find new construction homes out there that are relatively inexpensive all the way into very expensive. I mean, you can easily spend over $1 million in Noblesville if you want to, but you certainly don't have to. You can get something that's under $400,000 in Noblesville. I wouldn't say easily, but it can certainly be done. So Noblesville, a really unique place, and I'm a big fan of it because of that versatility. So if you have questions about Noblesville at all, or any of the surrounding suburbs or Indianapolis itself, then be sure that you reach out. And until the next one, we'll see you later.